Welcome back to another episode of the RAG Report podcast, my daily bulletin show where I bring to you recruitment owners, suppliers, advisors from around the world who are all giving up their time to share experiences and ideas that can help everyone across the recruitment industry survive and thrive through the coronavirus pandemic. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Kevin Green. Kevin is the former CEO of the REC and was HRD for the Royal Mail in mid-2000s, where he managed some huge transformation projects, which a lot of the work's going to be super relevant now. And he's also a serial NED advisor, chairman to a number of recruitment agencies. So he's giving out practical daily advice on a one-to-one level. And again, similar to some of the previous guests, I'm excited to hear some of these things to release it to the masses. So someone I met, I think about a year ago, we met and spent a bit of time together. So it's good to have you on and to catch up again, Kevin.
It is. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, perhaps not the best of backgrounds, but it's there and people are having to deal with it. So I think, keen to share some knowledge and some perspective, and hopefully people can take away a few gems and, try and get through this mad period of time that we're in.
Hope so. Well, look, thanks for taking the time. First question, I've asked everyone this. What the hell's going on for you right now? So while you're sipping your coffee in your what looks like a study with 1,000 books, yeah. What's going on? Paint the picture for everyone. What's happening for Kevin?
I think what's interesting, I'm a bit like everybody else. I don't think I've ever been as busy. The last 3 weeks has been, I'm up, I'm on calls from 8. You don't finish till 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. You're still looking at emails. So it's flat out. And a lot of that is helping the businesses where I'm, an advisor, non-exec, chairman, whatever it may be, because a lot of people are dealing with stuff they've not dealt with before. So this is where an advisor and a non-exec becomes quite useful. I'm thinking about this, what about this? So, there's a lot of value in having a non-exec. And again, this is one of the periods where, I think there's lots of value to be given. I've also been pulled in to talk to lots of HR directors who are in bigger organisations, some in recruitment, but some outside of the sector who are facing, cataclysmic events where there is no revenue. Their businesses have been closed, and how do we survive? So, it's a very busy period, and you're just trying to help people, keep people calm, get them to make thoughtful decisions. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I can remember talking to a couple of chief execs and getting them to go for a walk around the block and phone me a couple of hours because they were just going to make some random decisions because they just wanted to make decisions. Getting leadership teams to think about things really, what if, what happens there, what are the consequences, getting people to think things through and also reflect. I'm a great believer on sleeping on decisions. If you're going to make a big decision, be quite clear about what it's going to be, then spend try and get a bit of kip, and then come back the next day so that you've given yourself time to reflect and think it through.
I love that. Sleeping on decisions is something that I don't know if I do it as conscious as that, but I think I do it. So I love that. Right. Well, one thing about you, and especially with the REC background, I think you've always had a really strong. I mean, I remember when we met, you gave me some really good statistical macro level advice around the recruitment sector and how we should attack it. So, not many better people out there to say, look, what do you think's really going on? Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, what is the real scenario? Because I don't want to sugarcoat this. What is going on in the recruitment world?
Let me go back to 2008, right? So one of the great things of being a chief exec when we went through the last big recession of the REC is I had lots of data. Yeah. So the recruitment industry going into that recession was 27 billion. And coming out of it, it was a £19 billion industry across, and we lost that 30% of revenue in about an 18-month period. Okay, so a huge decline in activity, both perm and contract. Perm goes first, and contract comes second, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing though in this health-driven pandemic is it's like a meteorite hitting the earth, because economic activity has just stopped, and it's very different. And to give you a couple of figures, one is the whole market. If you look at market capitalization of the FTSE 250 or Fortune 500, they have lost 35 to 40% of value in a 2-week period. In a recession, it took us about 2.5 to 3 years to lose that. Unemployment, we've already had 1 million people registered for universal credit in 2 weeks.
Is that in the UK?
In the UK alone, all right? And 1 million people, it took us nearly 2.5 years to get through that in a recession. So this is much more severe, much more and much faster than certainly a recession. And if you go back to recessions, there's normally a conversation for about 6 months of, is one coming? People then start to make decisions about not hiring, slowing things up, not buying new equipment in anticipation of a recession. So you sort of gradually sort of slide into a recession. And then there's the period when the market's contracting. And that last recession was 6 quarters. Now, I think we've gone in much faster. I do think the likelihood is we may come out faster. So rather than 6 quarters of contraction, we may end up with 2 or 3. So Q2 this year, certainly. Q3, definitely. Q4, you could see some kind of bounce back. So it might be we've gone in, there's a debate at the moment in terms of economics. Is it a V-shaped? Is it a U-shaped? I've heard L-shaped because there's a new normal. W-shaped because it's, double dip recession. In reality, I think it's, at the moment, all you can say is it's an I. It's straight down. But it will come back, and it will come back, I think, faster than in a normal recession. So I think it's tough. I think it's a really tough place. So in terms of recruitment businesses, we feel it quite quickly. Jobs just evaporate. I've had one client who had 30 jobs placed, people starting 1st of April, gone. Just we're not running that project. All of those people, all those offers rescinded, These are people that have given in their notice, were in decent paid jobs, so people are taking some really severe decisions out there. And I think, recruiters are really feeling it. So, and I think most of them are taking sensible action. So do you want me to start talking through about what recruiters should be doing?
Yeah. Let's get into it. I mean, look, I'm on the front line talking to recruiters all day, and I'm personally hearing quite mixed reviews. Like I just recorded a show this morning, depending on which order things go out, in Japan, and the guy was saying how Japan hasn't even gone into any kind of lockdown. We heard all these stories about Japan being heavily hit, but Tokyo is still millions of people on the tube every day on their subway, and businesses, it's been hit, but not too hard. So I was like, oh, Hong Kong, again, China now back economically, moving back quickly. So there's such a mixed sort of, and then there's certain sectors. One of my clients said to me, I've just done 2 deals in the US worth like $50,000 each, and no problem. So it's like, you hear these, I'm hearing a lot of pockets of positivity as opposed to 2 weeks ago when it felt like the world was ending. It seems to change. But look, what are you hearing? And let's go into some practical advice mode. How do we help these people?
Let's just do one other macro thing. I mean, I think China coming back is hugely important. And as long as they don't have some kind of double dip where, the virus comes back and they have to go back into lockdown, that's really good news because they're one of the big drivers. I mean, they're the country that got us out of the 2008, 2009. My concern, though, is North America.
Yeah, same.
I just think their approach has been, if we think we've been a bit slow and a bit lax, they're certainly... I would amplify that in the States. And it's a huge driver of growth globally. So I think it's going to get much worse in the States. And I think you'll see it escalate over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I think they are 2 to 3 weeks behind us. They're now talking about 100,000 to 250,000 deaths. I think it will be at the upper level. And I think Americans are going to struggle to deal with this. They're not a nation that likes being told what to do by government.
Oh, of course.
So I think there'll be a lot of reaction in North America. So I think we need to keep an eye on that. So I do think there is good stuff going on. And I think the thing with recruiters at the moment is they are looking for positive signs. So the good news is 2 hires gets a little bit amplified. We'd have been doing, 2 every half day 3 or 4 weeks ago. But, and I think you've got to celebrate success. You've got to, if there is life at the end of the tunnel, we've got to go for it. So practical advice, 3 things, I think. One is let's talk about the business, first of all, and finances. Secondly, let's talk a bit about operations and how you run the business. Thirdly, let's talk about preparation for bounce back. So I think those are the three.
Logical. I like it.
Yeah. So revenue. At the moment, one of the things I've been saying to businesses and certainly to recruiters is it's about being there on the other side. This is about cash. This is not about P&L. So make sure that you focus on cash. It's about survival. It's about liquidity. There is no other game in town. So one of the things I've been talking to people is, some of your focus on margins and, profitability. I'd still keep an eye on it, but I'd certainly focus on cash. Couple of things that people need to do. Number one, chase down every penny you're owed.
Yeah.
Starting point, start with the people that owe you money and, phone them all up, have conversations, build the relationship. And if people can't pay you, do deals. Do deals about them paying you in part, give us half now, half in 3 weeks' time. Prepare to discount on even what you're owed. But what you've got to do is bring every piece of cash that you're owed into the business.
Yeah.
Secondly is obviously people cost, because that's going to be pretty high. It's normally 60 to 70% of a recruitment business. So you've really got to think about what you do with your people. And I know lots of people are furloughing their staff. It makes absolute sense because you're doing two things there. One is, you are giving those individuals a lifeline. Putting people into the jobs market and making people redundant at this time is tough. You are throwing people to the wolves, really. So if you can use the government scheme, and I think it's, and I'll talk a bit about government if you want me to, I think they've responded pretty well from an economic perspective, perhaps not so much from a health perspective. But again, the furloughing and getting 80% of people's costs covered is good news, because you've got 3 months basically where you can hang on to those people and bring people back if there is activity going on.
It's only till the end of May at the moment. So if you're making that decision now, it's still at the end of May. And also...
Yeah, because they're going to backdate it to the beginning of March. So you're right.
Yeah, so what my FD literally emailed me this morning about it, saying the biggest challenge she sees is they probably didn't estimate the amount of companies that are using it. So it's over. They've already seen more applications or whatever than they expected. The portal's not built. And again, when you say cash is king,
they're not going to give you the cash till the end of April.
Or later, who knows? If you've got every company in the country doing it, then how long? So the challenge with cash flow is furlough has one massive positive, but you've still got to pay that person. Yeah. And even, again, speaking to an employment lawyer yesterday, about I've had a lot of clients asking some stuff. So I was like, I know someone, and they were like, there's not enough information out there right now to know that you can guarantee that you could say, well, I'm not going to pay you till I get paid by the government. You can't do that. These people acquire and accrue holiday pay while they're on the furlough, so you're going to be hit with a big holiday bill if you do. And making them, let's just say you made someone redundant, you brought them back. You can't write into this that your redundancy then kicks in automatically at the end of the furlough either. So I think it's been great, and I get it. And literally recruitment companies left, right and centre tell me, oh, we furloughed this, we furloughed that. As if it's like this box ticked. And I think that's driving a bit more confidence because people's costs have dropped so dramatically. They're like, well, there's less pressure.
Yeah.
But where's the hidden danger?
You've got, for a recruitment business, it depends what's happened to your revenue. Is there still activity going? Are people paying you? How strong was your balance sheet? How much cash did you have in the bank? Everyone's circumstances are slightly different. First thing you want your FD to be doing is a cash flow forecast based on, realistic projections of getting paid, how much money you've got, how much needs to come out. And that needs to be updated on a daily basis. And you use that for the backdrop. If you need, if it looks terrible, revenue's gone, you may have to make some people redundant and furlough others. But furloughing is about giving those people a chance. Secondly, it's also about retaining some of your skills and talent. But let's be honest, it's hard to find good recruiters. And, you've spent a lot of time hiring them, a lot of time training them. If you can retain the good ones in the business that, in normal circumstances are are worth having, then I think it's worth doing.
Same.
If you've got people that, let's be honest, that you should have been moving on anyhow, then move them on. I'm not being a wimp. I think you have to make some tough calls. The first thing is, though, to make these decisions quickly. If you haven't already made this decision, I think you're behind the curve. You really need to have got into this. So managing cash, chasing down debt, doing cash flow forecasting, making some decisions around people. Third area on cash, I suppose, is premises. That's the other thing that lots of recruiters have got offices. So you just need to negotiate with landlords and basically see what you can do with them. See if they can give you a holiday. If not, if you've got a break, you're in serviced offices, you may be able to get out with them. So I think that's the next area.
I think what I'm hearing the most about is deferrals. So they'll give you the break, a bit like your mortgage payments. You're still going to have to pay it. It's just you get a 3-month break, which is what we've been given. But the problem with that is it's 3 months now. And if that becomes 6 or 9 months, depending on the cost of your office, it's cash in the bank, but it's all money you're going to need. And then you've got your VAT deferrals and everything that's been deferred. It ain't going anywhere.
No, it's not going anywhere.
That's the fear that I think people need to be prepared for next year.
Yeah,
some hefty bills coming in.
Yeah, and I think there will be. One of the things I've said is you don't pay the government anything, right? Right to every department. So NI contributions, PAYE, everything that you would normally pay to the government, corporation tax, VAT, you make sure you write to them at the time telling them why you're doing it. But you just got to get through. I know it sounds a bit harsh, but that is the reality. So the staffing stuff, what you can do around premises costs, don't give the government anything. And then that cash flow of building in over the next year, everything that you need to do. And I think, also the staff that you have, and I suppose this is getting on to what do you get people to do, and for me, I think there's a lot about you've got to talk to all your clients and you've got to talk to your candidates. You've got to be out there, you've got to be interacting, you've got to be having conversations, and also you've got to be offering to do stuff. You do stuff to people, candidates and clients that you wouldn't normally do. And the reason you do that is because everyone's in it together and people remember the people that stand by you. So you've got to do favours for people. Now, I don't think it immediately comes back. I don't think people can give you work because you help them through it. But I think what you will do is there's a level of goodwill.
Yeah.
You're building up a relationship. And if, in tough times, if you do help people, then they do remember it. And I think it will stand recruiters in good stead. Second thing is, you need to think about your team. You need a level of calmness. Now, I think it has settled down a bit, but 2 weeks ago, people were quite panicky. There was people that recognizing that this was a very different event and they were trying to make decisions without having a very clear head. They weren't listening to people. So I think, again, one of the things is, share this information with your management team, make them understand the circumstances, get them to come up with ideas, listen to what they're saying, make sure you reflect on it. Don't make, as I said, hasty decisions, because you repent at your leisure if you get things wrong. So think about it. Now, clearly, most people are working remotely. So I think there's a bit about making sure that, you have check-in meetings every day with the team. Make sure you set expectations of what you expect people to do from a work perspective, what you want them to focus on, how many clients they're going to talk to. So some broad thing. But one of the things I've had with a couple of chief execs and MDs is like, how do I know what they're doing? What are they going to be up to? I can't see them. And there's not going to be as many placements. So I'm going, well, this is a process of trust, isn't it? You trust your people, and if you trust them, most people do the right thing. So I think there's a bit about checking in with people at the beginning of team meetings. And what I mean by checking in, how you're feeling, what's going on for you. Score yourself out of work and home. Because what you've also got to do is remember you're managing human beings here. So I put my HR hat on is, you've got to manage the work and the activity, but you've also got to make sure the people are okay. Because you've got to spot some of those telltale signs around mental health, because there will be people that are pretty stressed. They're dealing with someone ill, family member that's not well. I don't know, all sorts of things. Kids at home. I had a meeting the other day with a baby on someone's lap. So you know, circumstances are very different. So I think there's a bit about trying to check in with individuals. You know, give me a score out of 1 to 5. Best day of your life, 5. 1, it's the worst day. And most people will be 3s and 4s. If someone says a 1, then you most probably need to, you know, come back round to that after the call with the team and just see if you can support the individual. Because people are going to be dealing with a lot of things that they haven't had to deal with before.
Yeah, agreed.
I think you've also got to sort of make sure that people are still collaborating. You know, all those little conversations that normally happen in an office, you know, when you're sat close to people. Oh, I can help with that. I've got a candidate for that. You know, so sometimes, you know, you get whiteboards on Teams and stuff, get people doing little projects of how could we help that client, you know, get 4 people on. So I think the creative bit, you know, a lot of recruiters are quite creative. They're quite, you know, they're quite, I don't know, what was I going to say? They like to talk. They like to be active. I think, you know, creating that opportunity for people to collaborate and try and solve problems and be creative for candidates, I think is something you don't want to lose at this time.
I think I've noticed myself when I'm at home, you can lock yourself away and hours can fly quite quick without any interaction with anyone other than maybe the odd video call or phone call. But you can be, you know, you can forget to make a drink or And then I've been on calls this morning with people that live at home on their own and they haven't spoke to a human properly in person for 2 weeks, apart from going shopping. And that's not great fun. So you got to remember that. If someone's living at home on their own, it's equally as scary as someone who's got kids and craziness. It's nuts. It's really nuts. But yeah, checking in and giving that almost like coffee break moment. Like we're doing a pub quiz this afternoon. One of my teams put it together and I'm excited about that.
I think it's good. I think people are doing yoga classes to get people. But I think the thing is, I would say from a management leadership point of view, more one-to-ones. You know, you might have done 1 a week. I do 2 a week, 3 a week. They don't have to be long, 20 minutes, half an hour, but just giving people some time to talk about what's going on for them and to listen. You know, the problem with managers and leaders, we like to talk a lot. Whereas I think what you've got to do is like 2 or 3 minutes of talking. This is where we are. This is what seems to be happening. How are things for you? Tell me about what you're working on, what's working, what's not working. You know, give them space, actually listen to them. And the other thing I think that's quite important in this whole remote working thing is to make sure you're accessible as a manager or a leader. So every day, give them a time. 2 till 3 in the afternoon, I'm available for any call, because one of the things that people get is if they send you an email and don't get a response for a day or a day and a half, they think you don't care. People are looking for immediate feedback because they've got no human interaction. So emails actually are quite dangerous. So I think, say, 2 till 3, 4 till 5, doesn't matter what it is, I'm available. Anyone want to have a chat for 5-10 minutes, tell us what's happening for you, then do it. So, and again, try and respond to people's stuff really quickly. So if someone sends you an email with a question, you haven't got time to answer it, just recognise it. Thanks for that, got it, I'll get back to you today or tomorrow. People are happy.
That's the beauty of those. We use Google Chat, but there's Slack and all the rest of it out there where you can have the instant messenger. That we got off WhatsApp nearly 2 years ago as a team because WhatsApp I felt was too connected to my personal life. So like, honestly, I'd be like, well, I'd be trying to not ignore my wife, but I'm trying not to engage with her because I'm busy. But then someone in the team chips in, and then she sees I've been online, but I've not checked her message, and I'm in trouble. Then I'm in the dugout, and I think, and also I don't know, you're so used to the kind of like jovial shit going around WhatsApp groups that you can drag into work. Whereas when we moved it to a new platform, this was August 18 we did it, Google Chat, and it's built in the G Suite. You can create rooms and channels, and so we've got rooms for leadership, we've got rooms for each team, and it works really well. And it means that whole, you know, be right back bit on an email is so much easier to do, and you can send emojis and pictures and stuff. So if anyone's not using something like that now in the recruitment space, they should be, and by all means reach out. We can help you with that. Where we got to, Kev? What we got next?
Well, I think we sort of, we could talk a bit more about the internal working bit, but perhaps the next bit's a bit about just preparing for bounce back.
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of the internal stuff with other guests. So what do you see? Yeah, how do we get ready for what's going to turn when it turns?
I think it may come back quicker. I mean, I think there's a lot of about focus on what you're great at. You know, we talk a lot about this with recruiters about differentiation And just, what are you going to be famous for coming back out of this? I think one of the things that you get is people are going to chase every opportunity and just go random. I'm not sure that's a great strategy. So I think go deep in what you're already good at. Most probably double down on your specialism. And if it's an area where there has been shortages, pick up the candidates. Start really thinking about those candidates that have been let go. Try and talk to people, find out where those candidates are, reach out to them, build a relationship with them. Because what we're gonna need quite quickly in certain areas is that we're gonna go from, actually, there must be loads of candidates out there, loads of people. Well, who knows who they are and where they are? That's a real differentiator and something that creates lots of value for businesses if you know where the candidates are and who's ready, what their specialism is, what they can do, where they work, who they want to work for. So there's a bit about really getting to know the candidates. Secondly, I think there's a bit about, the stuff that you do, the whole bit about, communicating, doing some broadcasts, doing some webinars, making people aware of who you are. Again, giving some value, giving stuff away, giving people ideas so that when people come back, you're front of mind, you're there. You're still going, you've given them some great tips, you've helped them think about stuff. I think that's good news. The other thing I think is really start to focus on where you think the opportunities will be. There are businesses that are still doing incredibly well. Supermarkets are doing okay, logistics companies are doing fine, anything into the healthcare is not bad. Insurance companies are still doing all right. So, think about those businesses, and if you're in IT or you're in a discipline or HR, then think about, well, HR and IT into those sectors. Who do I know in those sectors? Who do I reach out to? Are they hiring? Will they be hiring? So I think there's a lot about just thinking strategically about what you do and how you do it and preparing yourself so that you're well positioned. You know what you're going after. You've got the clients to meet the requirements if and when they come, and look for places where they are still doing well and where they will most probably accelerate even quicker as we start to see, the economy lift.
Yeah, definitely. It is crazy how many healthcare recruiters probably didn't see this coming and are busier than ever. I've seen some posts where they're like, someone wrote today on LinkedIn about how he's 200 vacancies they needed to fill yesterday or something. I was just thinking, it's just going to be complete polar opposites in certain offices right now. Yeah. And then how can people pivot towards a sector they don't know? I think that'd be dangerous and difficult, especially with the government, because it's all everyone's on them portals and agendas, aren't they? Where you have to sign up to a government.
Yeah, I think healthcare's one that's quite difficult to pivot into.
It. Yeah.
It might be that they're looking for ancillary staff. One of the things I know that in those Nightingale hospitals, they're looking for using cabin crew. Well, they're using cabin crew because we need lots of people to meet people, to prioritise, to manage logistics, all of that sort of stuff. So there might be an opportunity. But just give you one example. I work with a platform recruiter, Swiss-backed, in hospitality. All they put in young people via an app into bars and restaurants and hotels. No jobs at all. They've got 100,000 people in London. Basically reached out to supermarkets. Fantastic opportunity. They've got 800 in the first week into one of the supermarkets because they went to supermarkets and said, look, we got 100,000 young people across London. They've got data. This is where they are. This is their home address. These are the skills they've got. Are you interested? Yes, right. So a real proactive campaign. So there are times where you've got skills which are transferable. People picking and packing in logistics warehouses, food distribution in the Midlands, crying out for staff. And if you've got office professionals on your database, reach out. Would you be interested in doing, 3 or 4 weeks work in a warehouse in the Midlands? Yeah, I am. Well, I'm interested in getting the money. Then you've got an opportunity to go to those employers and say, I've got access to candidates with the sorts of skills that you're going to need. It does tend to be where, they're not deep specialists, but they've got transferable skills. But there are opportunities to pivot where you've got availability of candidates who aren't working and people looking to hire people. There are opportunities. So you've got to be a little bit opportunistic during these the next 2 or 3 months, but not forgetting what I said. What's our core specialism? Where's the opportunities when they come back? So I think what you've got to do, and again, this is most probably in your meetings, short-term opportunities, what are those? Let's have a look at them. Long-term, how do we prepare for the bounce back? You've got to be managing those two things in parallel.
If you had to get your crystal ball out, final question, Kev, what do you honestly think is going to happen? When are we looking at a bounce? Honestly, in your opinion, we're not going to hold you to it, but when do you think?
Well, I think that it depends on the health crisis. First of all, I think it's 3 months, really. From where we start, middle of March, I suppose, middle of April, middle of May, middle of June. They said they possibly will start looking at stuff middle of May, but it won't be locked down to everyone back to normal. It will. First of all, they will most probably do stuff regionally to test, and they will also do. What we'll do is we'll give people the right to return to work. We're still not going to open up the bars or the restaurants. We still want social distancing, but they'll use a small city most probably, just to see whether it bounces back. That'll be really quite important, because if the virus doesn't bounce back, they'll most probably go, say they use Leicester. What we'll do is we'll then, say bars can open from 5 till 8 in the evenings, or I don't know, they'll do it gradually so they can just test the health response. Once they get confident in that, then I think what you then go is a phased period. So I think what you've again got to see is where it's likely to be getting people back to work. But again, if people can work from home, why wouldn't you during this period? So I think it becomes in a phased approach. So I think it's 6 months before we're fully back to normal. Everyone, traveling into London, trains, public transport, planes flying again. I think 6 months. But again, you've got to. There's a lag to this economically.
The other argument is, the vaccine won't be ready in 6 months. So how do you ever go back? I listened to a podcast by a guy, Brian Rose, London Real. If anyone listens or hasn't, you get on it. It's an amazing podcast anyway. It's always got some cool stuff. But he interviewed one of the chief medical officers and talked about the reality of the vaccine. And he said, look, June next year is when we're likely to first see it. And it's going to take a long time to roll it out. What he did say, though, is it's a top-down, bottom-up approach. So at the moment, they're trying to suppress the NHS's bandwidth by, keeping people at bay. But the next thing they roll out is the testing. So once you get, and this is how I think people can go back to work, because it'll be, if we can get uniform testing across the board, then everyone should have, and it might be that it's on your phone and you've got to send that data off somewhere. I don't know how they're going to do it, but if we can get accurate testing at ground level, then you'll know who can and can't leave the house and who can self-isolate. So it'll become quite normal to say, well, I can't leave the house for 2 weeks because we are self-isolating, but that doesn't mean everyone else should. And it kind of suppress it while we're building that up. Once that's in place, that will allow us to live some form of normality until the vaccine.
I mean, there's an interesting thing in Germany. They're talking about giving people certificates to say they've got immunity.
Yeah.
They're doing 500,000 testing they've already done. They're doing, hundreds of thousands a day. One of the great problems is we're a long way behind the curve where we need to be on testing. So you're right. That is what the government needs to do, is to ramp up the testing. First of all, the medical professionals, so we can get those 25% that sat around not working back to work, so we can help the health service cope. But then obviously mass testing of everyone. And I think that will certainly come. But again, I think that's a good few weeks away.
Yeah.
We've only tested 2,000 medical workers and there's 500,000 of them. So we've got a long way to go, haven't we?
Got a long way to go. My business partner's girlfriend's dad is a 59-year-old he's a I don't know if he's a doctor. I think he's like gastro doctor. I don't even know the word for it, right? But he's definitely not a frontline A&E doctor. Anyway, he's based up in the Peak District or Lake District, and he's on the front line in the Lake District. But he's tested positive at the age of 59 a week or so ago, and now he's coming through it. So he said it was pretty mild. It wasn't, he didn't experience half the stuff everyone else does, and he's coming through it now, and he's okay. So it's nice to hear those stories of people at different ages battling through this, and it's not just a dead, you're gonna die kind of attitude. So.
And I think you've got to keep positive. So one of the things that I think a lot of people do say, and I think perhaps is the world will return to normal. It will come back. What you've got to do as a recruiter is you've got to be there. So you've got to manage that cash, get yourself organised, and start preparing for it. You know, one of the things that you see with recruiters, they quite often get a little bit reactive. You know, they just start chasing stuff and keeping busy. And actually, this is a time to think, to strategize, to plan, and to execute.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. Kevin, that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much. Your input is awesome. It's always valuable. And I'm sure I know your answer, but are you open for any of my listeners to reach out direct? Yeah,
always. You know, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, wherever you want to find me, I'm around. And if you want me back later on, when perhaps things become a bit clearer, happy to do that as well.
100%. This is not the rag podcast in its previous form. We're gonna that show is going to come back, and it will always be about talking about stories of growth from recruitment owners, whereas the RAG report will also survive, and it will always be a report, news, bulletin type show where it's about, people who know a lot about the space. So yeah, 100%, we'll have you back. We'll see how we're going. But you stay safe, and thanks again.
Yeah, look after your people.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the RAG Report. I'm hoping you're enjoying it. I'm hoping you're getting a lot of value. I'm reading all your messages. I'm getting lots of messages saying thanks for this. And anyone who's got any questions, anything you really want me to try and find someone in the world who can give us advice on, then shout me. If you want me to find someone who's recruiting in a certain sector, let me know. I'll do it. I'm giving up 1 to 3 hours a day at the moment to get ahead of this, to give you guys, my mission is to just help the industry be there at the end. That's what I want to do. If you're enjoying it, I don't ask for any money. I ask for one thing, and that is to share this with somebody else. So to a friend, a colleague, a boss, a competitor, someone else who you think will get value from this, please do share it, because the more people listen and the more our industry is proactive and strategic right now, the more we will all survive. In the meantime, stay safe, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another story for you to listen to. Take care.